The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Fenland again, everybody. Now today we're in a village which was difficult to research, quite frankly, because this one's got virtually nothing recorded about it anywhere. I did turn up a few little gems though, including something that's connected not just to Fenland but also to Plymouth in Devon and also London too. Let's find out about all of that as we take a walk around Gorefield. Gorefield, Field of Bloodshed. For your Thursday episode this week, we're in the parish of Gorefield, which is centred around a village of the same name, just to the west of Leverington. Gorefield's name is exactly what it sounds like. At some point in its history, there must have been a battle here because it means field where blood was shed. It wasn't mentioned in the Domesday Book and it first appears in a manuscript dating from 1190. There's nothing ancient on show here today. The church wasn't built until 1870 because before that time, Gorefield was ecclesiastically tied to Leverington. As such, this one can be seen as a developing village, with most of its visible history dating from the 19th and 20th centuries. This sort of ties in with how much is known about the place in records. Spoiler alert, it ain't much. Gorefield has developed mainly along one straight road with St Paul's Church slap bang in the middle of it all. The western end used to be defined by a windmill which stood tall over the road, whilst the eastern end had the school and a congregational chapel. They both still stand today, but a modern house now occupies the site of the mill. Gorefield has continually grown since the days when the mill's sails were still turning. Now, with a population of well over 1,000, this small Fenland village is quite an attractive little spot, located very close to the Lincolnshire border. Its beauty has been recognised a few times in the past. Most recently, in 2004, Gorefield won the Fenland District Award in the Cambridgeshire Village of the Year contest. Let's go walking and see if it's maintained its rural elegance 21 years on. Gorefield is, to all intents and purposes, a linear village, even though this route is partially circular in nature. Stretching from the edge of Leverington in the east to the Lincolnshire border in the west, it's essentially based around one long lane called High Road. Our starting point is right in the middle of civilization at the village green on Oxfield Drive, which in turn is off High Road. Now, I won't lie to you. Gorefield was a really hard one to research. It has virtually no recorded history because as a settlement it's fairly new. Most of the place as you see it today was built in either the 19th or the 20th century, despite the fact it was first mentioned in a document in the late 12th century. Gorefield School provided me with my first major landmark, but also my first major problem. I found absolutely nothing about this building, nor did I pin down any educational background. So, drawing on my 4 years of experience seeing school buildings just like this one, you can clearly tell this is one of the oldest buildings in the village. The brickwork and the architecture is clearly Victorian. These days, the primary school here is referred to as Gorefield Primary Academy, given that it opted to adopt academy status a few years ago. The school's uniform is a lovely shade of dark red. Directly opposite the school we have a pub, and this is the only one in Gorefield these days. It's called the Woodmans Cottage Inn. There used to be at least one other pub in the village. Some sources reckon there were 4. One of them was called the Gote Inn, and it was located just a few steps away from this. I'll show you where shortly, but nowadays the Woodmans Cottage is the only one that remains, and it's a beauty. This is a traditional country pub and restaurant with facilities that include a large bar area, a games room, a beer garden, and a 4-roomed accommodation block. Okay, we don't have to go very far to find the next thing. It's literally, again, opposite the pub and next door to the school. It's an old chapel, which is hiding away behind this pole right here. This former congregational chapel was built in 1836 and once had capacity for 200 sittings. It was likely in use until at least 1929, so says Kelly's Directory, but today it's a private dwelling. Until the Church of St Paul was built in 1870, this would have been the only place of worship in Gorefield village, unless you want to count Harold's Bridge Primitive Methodist Chapel. That was located a ways away west of the village in a very isolated spot near the north level main drain. It was so well out of the way you wonder where the congregation would have come from. It served until the 1950s and then became a corn store. Like this chapel in the village itself, it's since been converted into a house. So here we have the former Gote Inn. Note, by the way, that the spelling of this is G-O-T-E and not G-O-A-T as in the farm animal. That's a mistake on some OS maps which spell it like the animal. Goat, with the alternative spelling, is Old English and it means a drain or a gutter or something similar. On the fens, a drain is a dike or a ditch, the channels which would have diverted water away from the fens, aiding their drainage. There are lots of goats on the fens. The hamlet of Four Goats near Tid St Giles literally takes its name from the fact there were, or indeed still are, 4 of them at that point. When researching this pub, I found a story connected to Leverington. In 1851, a rich Leverington landowner's wife named Mrs. Dearlove died of arsenic poisoning. The day before, she had thrown cold water over her 2 servant girls because they were still in bed when they should have been at work. Following her death, one of them was suspected of murdering her using the toxic metallic element and was arrested at the Gote Inn. Okay, once you get beyond the corner where that pub is, you're then on Gote Lane, and it looks, to be honest with you, like it's running off into the distance and there's not much to see, apart from a few houses, of course. Well, that's where you're wrong, because up here there's a private drive on the left hand side there. Now, I wonder how many Gorefield residents know about this. So this is the entrance to the old vicarage. It's not a vicarage anymore though, instead it's a cosy little B&B. However, it's not that long ago that this building was connected to the city of Plymouth in Devon and 2 colleges in London. In Plymouth there's a university called Marjon. It was formed when the colleges, founded in London in the early 1840s, merged together in response to the growing demand for trained teachers. The colleges were called St Mark's and St John's, hence the name Marjon. It's a term that was first coined in 1923. Marjon's claim to fame is that Joy Carroll was once among its students. Carroll was one of the first women to be ordained as a priest in the Church of England and became the main model for the TV character Geraldine Granger, or the Vicar of Dibley, if you will. So what's that got to do with Gorefield? Well, St Mark's was a preparatory school where young teachers could practice before they were deemed good enough to teach. Although based in London, it had its very own country seat. That was right here in Gorefield. Known as the Fen House, it occupied the old vicarage building. After being blessed by the Lord Bishop of Ely, it was opened in 1971. So as you probably gathered, it's surrounded by trees and I can't really see it, but it is there, trust me. I'm stood on glebe close here, which makes sense because church glebe and all that kind of stuff. The vicarage is literally just there behind them trees there and this fence. We'll talk a bit more about this in a sec. Let's go for the church next. Also on Gote Lane is the old village hall. I say old because nowadays Gorefield has a brand new community building on Wolf Lane. We'll come to that later. This was originally built in 1904 as a Sunday school and a parish room and served as the village hall for many years. The new hall effectively took over that role when it opened. What this building is used for now is perhaps a little unclear. It seems it's maybe been turned into a house, but I'm not totally sure. This is the Church of St Paul. It was built in 1870. Prior to that, Gorefield had no church because ecclesiastically it was tied to Leverington. Because, like most of the village, St Paul's Church is still only 150 years old, there's not a lot of recorded history about it. I did, though, find a couple of things. The cornerstone of the church was laid on the 28th of April 1870 by Edward Bowyer Spark, the son of a late Leverington rector, Canon Spark. It was constructed of flint with freestone dressings for £2,000, and the cost was completely covered by Canon Spark. Its architect was a Mr. Preedy of London, who designed the building to accommodate nearly 300 people. It's by no means a small church. Now, if you've been watching the North Kesteven series, you might recognise the names of its contractors. They were Messrs S and W Pattinson of Ruskington. The church is lovely enough and certainly well worthy of our time and attention, but of course it's the vicarage next door that's arguably of more interest. Now, in front of the church, you can take a seat, because there is literally a seat here. It's not any kind of normal bench though. Let me show you what it is. It's a piece of brickwork with a wooden plank on top of it, and you might be able to see a date there. 1825, does that say? I think it's 1825. Well, even if it's not 1825, it doesn't matter. We'll find out probably on this board here. So, this is Gote Bridge Seat. This notable structure that has appeared at the Gote Crossroads on the edge of the churchyard has been erected by Gorefield Parish Council. This seat incorporates the keystone from the original Gote Bridge, which was saved when the bridge was demolished. Originally, the bridge was a brick arch, much the same as the remaining one at Fendyke Lane. The inscription LP indicates that it was in the parish of Leverington because there was no parish of Gorefield at that time. The inscribed date of 1827 indicates when the drains were improved in the area. Gote Bridge was situated at the junction of Cattle Dyke. Its position was marked by white railings. By the time of this photo, the watercourse the bridge had originally been built over had been changed to its current state. The bridge was left redundant, except in being a significant meeting point for villagers. It was a place to gather and watch the world go by, an important bus stop and a focal point of the community. It was known by many as Gote Bridge. However, few people were aware in the 50s and 60s that the brick structure remained until road improvements exposed it and the remains were demolished. So there you go, now you know a bit more about Gote Bridge Seat. It's not clear when St Mark's dispensed with the vicarage as their annex, but now this street stands as the only clue to Gorefield's historical connections with the school and Marjon University. As the country annex of St Mark's School, the vicarage boasted a large common room, its own kitchen, a dining room and 3 dorms. The annex was used for many different kinds of field work, such as local history, environmental and industrial studies, and many others. From the house, pupils used to go on field trips, visiting places such as Ely Cathedral, Denver Sluice and Cambridge, as well as the Shuttleworth collection of aircraft. Now we're in the western end of the village, which you probably describe as being fairly well populated today. It wasn't always the case. It used to be pretty sparse up here. OS maps from the early 1900s show there was a smithy and a windmill in this part of the village, both of which have now disappeared. Close by was Richmond Hall, a former manor house whose site includes a moated ringwork. Only part of its earthworks now remain, as they're mainly under a modern farm. The only things of note here today are Fenland Garage and a Londis store. The latter hasn't always been as big as it is now. Its modern extension was added at some point between 2009 and 2022. Well, you would have had a better shot of the shop than that if the lorry wasn't in the way. Timed that completely wrong, didn't he? There we go. Right, now we're on a little street that runs down the side of the shop. This is called the Barracks, and this has got an interesting bit of history too. The name of this street, as it might suggest, is military related. Gorefield Barracks were for members of the RAF and served as temporary housing for individuals awaiting council properties. Now we're making our way back towards the east, and to do that we have to follow Back Road. This runs parallel to High Road and brings us out at the playing field. Standing in front of the playing field is Gorefield Community Hall and Sports Pavilion. Once again, it's another building that does exactly what it says on the tin. The entire site is part of a community-owned asset. The field was first purchased in 1972, and for many years it managed with an old prefabricated World War II building for sports changing. After many years of fundraising and setbacks, this brand new Community Hall and Sports Pavilion was eventually opened by the TV presenter Jake Humphrey in 2013. It was extended and revamped somewhat in 2021 with the aid of both local and government grants. Today the hall is truly Gorefield's showpiece. Every year, in July, a beer festival is held in the village. Since 2022, that event has taken place right here at the Community Hall. Okay, so from here we just have one more thing left to cover on foot, and that is a local butcher shop, V Gagen. Let's see if we can find some meat. The final stop on our route around the village is V Gagen, back on High Road. This is a butcher's where tradition, quality and community converge to create a culinary experience like no other. Established in 1939 by Neville Gagen, this family-owned business has been a cornerstone of Gorefield life for over 80 years. Neville Gagen's vision was simple yet profound, to provide Gorefield with the finest meats and freshly baked goods. From humble beginnings in a small shop, it's now grown into a beloved institution, cherished by generations of Gorefielders. We often say, don't we, that it's rather sad that so many shops and businesses have disappeared over the last 100 years in village communities just like this. It's great to see that Gorefield still has this one. Okay, so to get to the next parish we have to drive westwards again, and that means leaving Gorefield via a road that's got a few different names. Some sources call it Turnover Bank, some say it's Honey Hill Road. Whatever you want to call it, it has a ghostly tale to tell, and it all centres around a small farmhouse. Yes indeed it does, so let's hop in the car and tell this ghostly tale to finish. This is the story of the Gorefield Poltergeist, and it involves the family of a man called Joe Scrimshaw, a wealthy farmer who lived at North View. Built in 1909 on Turnover Bank, Scrimshaw lived in the house together with his mother and his daughter Olive, aged 14 at the time of this story. At dusk on the 12th of February 1923, a bizarre series of events unfolded which continued for 4 days. The contents of the house flew around, breaking into tiny pieces. Olive was sent away the morning after it started to stay with relatives. The events attracted a lot of local attention, and even the press got involved, dubbing North View the haunted house. Several claims were made that the force behind these goings-on was something paranormal, and it was the work of a poltergeist. Some other locals thought it was witchcraft. It gathered sufficient attention that none other than Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote to the Scrimshaw family offering some advice. In his writing, he suggested Olive was perhaps unconsciously playing the part of a medium and drawing out an atmosphere or vapour which can be used in a material way by intelligent forces. Soon after, the News of the World paid for a local wise woman, Harriet Mary Holmes, to perform a ritual spell breaking using a commonplace form of anti-hexing. It didn't work. On the 5th of March 1923, Harriet was found face down outside her own house, drowned in 6 inches of dike water. This too was deemed to be the work of the poltergeist. Since then, other reports of strange activities at the house were recorded, and it remained an unsolved mystery. Now though, things appear to have calmed down. There's been no more furniture moving around or crockery thrown about either. We can conclude then maybe that the ghost has decided to leave the house alone ever since. I can confirm I didn't experience anything paranormal whilst I was here. Newspaper articles and commentators of the day were quite surprised by the enormous number of people on the fens who still believe in witches and black magic. Many put forward the idea that Joe Scrimshaw and his family had been bewitched, despite the fact that on the whole, such nonsense had gone out of fashion long before. If such things do exist, they seem to be very active on the fens, lest we forget the tale of the whirlwind yesterday in Leverington, as well as this in Gorefield. We're off to a place next that hopefully has none of that. We're heading to a village that's known best for a landmark called the Cage. See you there tomorrow. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.